Welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right into a totally mind-bending, planet-shrinking what-if scenario today. We're going to explore the absolute wildest concept, connecting New York to Paris, Chicago to Berlin, and Toronto to Madrid by high-speed rail. Seriously, imagine looking at a world map that no longer feels divided by oceans, where a single, massive rail network just effortlessly bridges the gap between the old world and the new world. And to be clear, this isn't just a story about really fast trains. We're taking a profound look at power, engineering, commerce, and honestly, the boldest transportation dream humanity might ever attempt. There's this quote that I think perfectly captures the vibe of what we're talking about today. The Atlantic would stop feeling like a wall and start feeling like a path. Think about that for a second. We're not just talking about a physical upgrade to how we travel. We're talking about fundamentally reshaping how we view global geography itself. For centuries, the Atlantic Ocean has been this massive, intimidating barrier. But what if we transform that ultimate symbol of separation into the world's most ambitious corridor? All right, let's dive into Section 1, the ultimate transatlantic bridge. I want you to picture stepping onto a train in North America and arriving in Europe with the exact same casual, no-big-deal certainty that you'd have crossing a state line today. I mean, totally forget the frustrating reality of modern air travel. Forget the endless security lines, the exhausting layovers, the jet lag, and that sheer physical fatigue of being crammed into a metal tube up 30,000 feet. Instead, swap that out for a fluid, connected experience. We're talking about a sleek, continuous system just effortlessly gliding through tunnels and under the ocean. You aren't painfully leaving one world to enter another. You're taking a single, seamless journey through a deeply connected civilization. Which brings us to Section 2. An unprecedented engineering challenge. Now, I know exactly what you're thinking. The skepticism is probably kicking in right about now. And honestly, that is totally fair. Building a high-speed rail across an ocean represents a nearly impossible technological hurdle. I mean, building rail across dense land is already a massive headache. Spanning an ocean introduces a frankly terrifying list of environmental and logistical obstacles. If we're talking about a submerged or tunnel-based route, this infrastructure has to withstand mind-boggling underwater pressure. It has to survive completely unpredictable geological instability and massive ocean currents. It's got to endure extreme temperature variations, and perhaps the most daunting part of the whole shebang, engineers would have to somehow create foolproof emergency evacuation scenarios right in the middle of the Atlantic. It sounds like pure science fiction, doesn't it? But hey, science fiction is usually just engineering imagination waiting to happen. Overcoming those massive obstacles would require some absolutely incredible technological breakthroughs. We're looking at things like evacuated tubes to completely remove air resistance, advanced magnetic levitation so the trains literally hover above the tracks, or hyperloop-like systems capable of spanning entire continents at unprecedented speeds. Taking those theoretical concepts and turning them into structural reality is the only way we could finally bridge the Atlantic. Let's move on to Section 3, redrawing the economic map. So an engineering marvel of this magnitude, it wouldn't just be cool. It would create massive, earth-shattering ripple effects on global commerce, human movement, and the flow of capital and ideas. Just look at the winners here. Regional economies and major hubs would absolutely boom. Transatlantic tourism and business travel would become virtually frictionless. Academic and cultural exchanges would flourish like never before. But of course, this faster flow forces legacy systems to adopt or die. Short-haul flights, traditional airlines, old freight models, and corporate logistics would all face severe disruption. Because whenever a new technology rewires mobility, it fundamentally rewires business itself. Geographically, the world just shrinks. Hubs like New York, Washington, Boston, Chicago, and Toronto would be connected directly to London, Paris, Brussels, Amsterdam, Frankfurt, Madrid, and Rome. These cities would become so incredibly intertwined, completely redistributing global growth. Imagine a teacher in Boston collaborating effortlessly with a school in Berlin, or a designer in Paris just popping over to a meeting in New York without the friction of a long-haul flight. It's a game changer. The rapid movement of people leads directly to the rapid movement of ideas. Now let's look at Section 4, the politics of trust. Because while the engineering might be a total nightmare, the political architecture required for a shared continental infrastructure could be even harder to pull off. A project spanning continents is ultimately a project of trust between nations. And that raises a massive, unavoidable question right out of the gate. Who actually pays for it? Imagine the sheer scale of the financial and ownership disputes between the United States, Canada, and all the various European nations involved. Who owns it? Who operates the day-to-day? How are the fares set? The financial logistics are easily just as complex as the engineering ones. Layering onto that is the massive headache of borders and customs. How in the world do you manage immigration and intelligence when people are zipping along at high speeds on a continuous train journey? You can't just filter them through traditional airline level checkpoints. It defeats the whole purpose. Security coordination would have to be entirely reimagined from the ground up to keep the network safe, without turning the whole experience into a slow, frustrating fortress. And finally, how is safety actually enforced across an entire ocean? A project of this scale requires absolute, foolproof cyber protection, structural redundancy, and deep, unwavering international trust to prevent catastrophic failures. Plus, you have to consider the harsh reality that a massive transatlantic link could easily become a strategic target in times of global tension. Peace and safety here depend not just on the physical steel and concrete, but on the political stability that protects it. Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, Rewiring Human Civilization. So we've talked about the engineering, the economics, and the messy politics. But what about the emotional and cultural impact of completely erasing the psychological distance between the old world and the new world? Historically, the Atlantic has always been a space of separation, a boundary defined by slow ships, real danger, and vast, isolating distances. But in this future scenario, it becomes a physical corridor of unity. It becomes a symbol of shared destiny and the backbone of a connected civilization. When an ocean ceases to be an obstacle and officially becomes a bridge, the very fabric of human history shifts. This creates something called emotional geography. It's basically a psychological shift in how we as humans imagine distance. Suddenly, two entirely separate continents would begin to feel like parts of one larger shared cultural region. Fluid travel would make remote lifestyles, international families, and a true sense of global belonging feel incredibly normal. Our entire concept of what is far away would fundamentally shrink. Because ultimately, infrastructure is never just infrastructure. It is a literal reflection of what a civilization believes is possible. A project of this unbelievable magnitude tells humanity that we refuse to let distance dictate our future. It proves we are willing to invest in our absolute biggest ambitions and think far beyond borders and oceans. And that leaves us with one final, truly provocative question to end our explainer today. Can two continents decide to move through the future together? Because it's not just about trains, is it? It's about choosing to connect what once felt impossible to connect. Take a moment to think about the sheer scale of that idea and how it could reshape the world if it ever became reality. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and stay curious as we continue to explore the most fascinating scenarios that challenge our understanding of the world. Catch you next time.